Hey folks, good evening. It's Lisa Ziegler coming to you here from the Gardener's Workshop Urban Flower Farm with our Sunday evening get-together, right, of planting and maintaining a small home cutting garden. So I'm can't believe I'm sitting here still in a jacket. We're at the end of May. It's Memorial Day weekend, and it is still really cool outside, but that's not going to stop us, right? So I have really two good lessons from this week. That's why it says trials and errors. Stuff just really happens, and we knew that this was potential based on what we planted last week. So just to kind of review where we've been and then where we are right now. So normally, this is a warm season tender annual garden. It is my very favorite workhorses of having a little cutting garden. It is really like the perfect companion for someone's landscape, meaning you can take snips from perennials in your yard and some shrubs maybe for foliage, and having these beautiful annual flowers that are so productive to cut from. It's just a really sweet thing to have in your yard. And we know a lot of people, we sold a lot of these for Mother's Day, so I was doing this to kind of help people go through this process. So I planted, this is the seed collection, and I actually put the link on this Facebook feed, and it has instructions, but it also has this little diagram, and it's a 3 by 10 foot bed. And what I've done is split the bed right down the middle. So I have two 3 by 5 beds, which you'll see here in a minute. We'll go out here to do a little bit of work, which is the perfect frame for this building that I'm sitting in front of called the Inn. And so there were no beds here, just, the week before this garden was, we started this, was just grass. So I did my triage bed building, which was, I just laid a large sheet of cardboard, 3 by 5, down on each side, put rocks around it to be the border of my bed, and then I filled the bed with excellent quality potting mix and compost. And that just created a deep enough bed to sustain a plant, and the cardboard kind of smothers the weeds out, and the cardboard will break down. So that'll be gone. I mean, once it starts heating up and raining here, that cardboard will just go away in no time. So what happened last week? Well, because it's been so much cooler, so longer into the season, we have literally here on our flower farm been planting almost a month behind. Even with using row covers and stuff, it has just been, it isn't just chilly. We had some in the mid 30s just a week and a half ago. And so that made me delay even more planting this little cutting garden. And a symptom of doing that was the transplants I had started for this garden, many of them just got too big and ugly to even be planted. It's just not worth planting really overgrown transplants. So we restarted them, but last week when I really wanted to get them in the ground, they were still just itty-bitty babies. So as an experiment, we planted those little teeny starts in the garden, something new, and overall we came through like a champ. And what has happened is it would have happened no matter the size, I think, of what I planted. Back in this area of our farm, we do have a population of cutworms, and they sawed off probably, I think, only like 3 or 4, not many. So we lost a few. So my lesson, so that happens, right? Now, out in our fields, that typically just doesn't happen. First off, we're usually planting much larger plants, and we tend to just not really have any loss. So what I did last week as a backup, because I'm the person that always has a backup plan, right? And that's what farming teaches you. So I did not pitch the rest of those plants. So we had these, let me just get one of these little trays here. So these are these are the coxcombs that we planted from last week, right? So we only plant, I mean, the cutting garden only takes like, I think there's 8 maybe over there, or maybe 12. And we planted some more mature ones that I swiped from our commercial production, and planted half in the larger size and half in the smaller ones. Well, I'm so glad that I kept these guys, because this week we are going to actually plug in where we lost some of these transplants. And if I would have not started more than I needed, and this is a great lesson, and I learned this lesson from Frank Arnowski, one of our just founding fathers here in the flower farming world. I can still remember being at a conference that he said, I always start a minimum of 1 extra tray of everything that we, he said double, because he has a really big farm. Because if you have a crop failure, I mean, you are really behind. Seed is typically fairly inexpensive in the big picture of things. So you don't need to maybe start that much extra, but starting more than you need and then holding on to them until you have success in the garden is really a great idea. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, you're going to see when we go out here to the garden, you're going to see how much bigger these little transplants are. Even though they still don't look very big, these are still only, let's see, what is today? The 25th, I think? These were started on May 12th. So they're only like, what, 10 or 12, 14 days old or something. So they still have a little bit of growing to do. But what you're going to notice is the ones that have been out here in the garden are even smaller, because these have been in my warm transplant room under a grow light. So that's just another really great lesson on why we start everything indoors and grow it to the proper size before we plant it out on our farm, because it just removes a lot of potential errors and pest loss and just a lot of stuff. So I've actually got here, let me pick this up. I've actually got here my whole little tray of all of our little fixins from last week. And so before I go over there and get down on the ground and we start looking at there, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do about weed control, because once again, because we planted such tiny little plants, as I shared last week, I did not mulch this bed. Typically in a home gardening situation, in a small garden like this, I would have mulched the bed in whatever I was going to use, chips, bark, pine straw, shredded leaves, whatever it was. I would have mulched fairly deeply before and then planted into the mulch. That's much easier than planting the plants and mulching around them. But because some of these transplants were so tiny, I mean, the coxcomb was teeny last week, right? And I knew that it would be too vulnerable to insects, slugs, or anything else, so we didn't do that. So we've not mulched yet. But I'm going to show you why it would have been a good idea to mulch and to wait till the plants were a little bigger, but how I can control all of those little teeny weeds that you might not notice, but you're going to notice them once we get over there. So once again, this is the Cutting Garden seed collection. It's not too late to start. I am in southeastern Virginia, and our last frost date is mid-November, and all of the components that are in this pack can either be direct seeded, straight out in the garden, or started inside, which is our preference. But we plant this group over and over again. And if you haven't already, you can go to our website. If you click the link that's on this feed, that takes you to this seed collection, but that gets you on our website. And if you just click the home page, and right there is to sign up for my farm news. If you sign up for our farm news, we send out a lot of great content and videos. For instance, let's just talk about this week. So tomorrow, let's see, tomorrow I just saw all the emails that are going out this week. So tomorrow's email has talks about what we're doing on Thursday night. We're actually interviewing, Dave and I are interviewing 3 of our students that have just built up, started out fresh, new growers, less than 5 years, that have just ramped their businesses up, and they have really hit it with this pandemic. They have just overcome, because they had a great model beforehand, they just really hit the ground running. On Wednesday of this week, if you're on the email list, we'll be sending out the direct links to 2 videos. One of them is a replay of the Flower Farming Hacks with Dave, and the other is the replay of Jenny and Ellen's, and I'm pretty sure most people didn't see this because this was over on Instagram Live. Jenny Love and Ellen Frost book lists. They did a great chat about the great books that flower pros and flower lovers just really ought to read, and their own little review. It was really a great chat. So those 2 will be going out this week. And then if you're on our email list, you will also get on Wednesday the link to join our live event on Thursday, interviewing those successful flower farmers. But I also, tomorrow goes out, and I'll tell you guys what it is before it goes out. I wrote a blog, and it's on my blog post. You can see it on our website. And I talk about that I kind of piggybacked on a blog that I wrote about 2 years ago that was about of getting started as a flower farmer, and the title of this one is Becoming a Flower Farmer and the Rest of the Story. And it's really just touching on how things are really changing here for us, and how I am really super stoked and excited that I am going to be going through Dave Dowling's Advanced Flower Farming School class that's running in late summer as a student this year. His class is all about growing bulbs, perennials, and woodies, and it also has some structure growing, but not in depth at all. And as we are backing off of huge production here on the farm, we are looking to diversify and grow more of a selection of cutting flowers like I used to back in the beginning. And I really don't know where to start about choosing the perennials, what to buy, what varieties. And I am so excited to go back to school, y'all. So I am going to go along with all the students that are in this course. I'm going to binge watch the classes on Sundays. I know it's going to be really hard for folks during the farming season, but we're doing this special edition. And I will tell you, it's a little insider thing that because I needed help figuring all this out this fall, I thought, let's just run that class, y'all. Let's just do this. And that way I will figure out what plants I need to order and get in the ground this fall, and what bulbs, so I can have a jump on the season for next year. So I know that I'm not going to have time to really study and go in depth, but I will get enough information this summer, binging on Sundays watching it, to get my stuff planted and ordered, and then I'll review the whole course again over the winter to kind of ramp my knowledge up, right? So that's in my blog that's going out in the email tomorrow, but you can go to the website and read that now if you want. And I will have to tell you guys, I feel like it's a new day for the Gardener's Workshop Farm. We're so excited to serve our customers. We're not growing for the masses anymore. We're growing exclusively for our longtime customers, and we're just really thrilled. And I am super happy about growing some perennials and bulbs and having Dave to really help guide me along with the whole class, right? So I hope to see you guys there. So let's go over. So what did I do last time? I think last time I just took you out of the stand, right? So I'm gonna take you out of my tripod here. And so we have to take, and I'm gonna turn you around before I get my hands full. And we are just gonna take this whole tray over here, and we're gonna start up here in the corner. And let's see here. So my little garden, so here's what we planted last week. And those were the mature coxcombs that we planted. Well, one got bitten off right back. You can see it. See his little stem right there? He just got whacked off. And I did cover, this was actually covered with row cover until, I think it was Thursday that it got so hot here, and I was really afraid of toasting them. So first things first, let's take one of these. So these are my leftovers from last week. This is yellow coxcomb. So let's put these other back. I gotta keep stuff on the right trays, or it's hard to remember what they are. So I'm gonna just reach across here and actually, where is it? There it is. So taking that little fella out, he was already getting rooted in, and I am just going to plug this fella in. Sorry, y'all, kind of crooked right now, but I'm reaching beyond. All right. So now that's finished off. So now look at this. So these are the tiny coxcombs we planted last week. See how little they are? Wait a minute. That's one right here. That's one right there. I'm looking around. So one's missing, actually two, and this one is really little. Look at him. So let's look at, so those have spent the last week, since you saw them last week, outdoors. These are the ones that I have had indoors under grow lights growing. So these are definitely looking a little better, aren't they? So we're gonna snap up a couple of these little guys, and I'm actually gonna add one over here. And let's see, we need to put one here. Yes, one right there. So I'm going to choose the biggest ones here. And again, I'm just so grateful that I kept the extra plants as my backup and kept them going and healthy. And I think we need another one right there. I would rather have too many. You know, that's the thing about a cutting garden, y'all. You plant stuff so much closer than you do in a landscape because you're going to be constantly cutting on it. All right, let me just step back. Oh, that one looks really puny. I think we ought to just put one of these guys in. Look at the roots on that guy. So he looks really cold and not very happy there. So we're just going to pop this little fella right down. All right, I'm just taking a step back, and I think we need one more right here in this corner. So there's one more. I want to get that big one right there. So we're going to put him right there. And so I'm going to show you why we're over here, but we're not going to do anything about it on this side. I'm going to show you how to take care of. Can you all see all these little tiny weeds? See, the soil that I put in this garden was a combination of old containers that were just sitting around empty of plants, so I dumped them in. And then there was one pot that had some garden soil. You see all those little weeds? If you don't do, that's what the mulch, first off, would have prevented. I mean, they're everywhere. Look at it. Those are all weeds. Those are not what the plants that we want. I think we need one more coxcomb right there, y'all. Let me grab another one. So I'm going to put one more of these bigger coxcombs. Here he is, right here in this hole. I think we're missing one. All of these little teeny weeds. So it's been 1 week since the soil was completely disturbed by me, roughing up the edge, so to plant all these little baby plants. So I'm going to show you. I have my hand hoe over in the other bed, because I mean, there's everywhere. This is the bazillion weeds that overtake your garden, y'all. They're out there right now, and I'm going to show you how it'll take me. If I wasn't holding a camera, it would take me less than 3 to 4 minutes to do both of these beds thoroughly. And I'll show you how we do that. So let's take these guys over here with us. So I'm going to set this down, and then I'm going to take a step back and let you guys see for those that are joining us for the first time here. So those are the 2 3x5 cutting beds. And that's the little building is the inn, which was a cottage here on our farm for many people over the years. It's now my potting shed. And so you can see that the 3x5 beds are perfect to flank the front of this sweet little building. And you can see the rocks that I've used to not only hold the cardboard down that's on the base of these beds, but it's going to hold the soil, and it just kind of adds interest, don't you think? So over here, I want to do a little comparison. Where is our basil? So I'm going to just set. That's the basil that spent the week inside, and these little guys are still pretty small. So it doesn't look like any of them are missing from what I can see here. So I am not going to replant any of them. However, look at all those little weeds. I do see that I am missing. Look at them. Here it is. Here's our victim. Cutworms, y'all. Cutworms. So I'm missing 2 Benary's giant zinnias. You can see the little row there, and these are all planted according to the little diagram that's on the back of our seed packet, right? So so I will not put any kind of mulch on this bed until these plants are more like, those are our sunflowers. You can see how much they've grown. That's a really good size to mulch. So I want to show you what I will do as best I can with holding the camera. So this is our favorite little tool. Let me get, oh my goodness, y'all. I'm going to have to set you down for a minute. You're going to have to watch bugs. Remember last time you got to see some, I have to take the wrapper off this hoe. It's taped. So y'all hang out. Whoop, sorry. Hang on a minute, y'all. I'm just getting the tape off of here. I didn't realize it was, and oop. All right, got it. Coming. Okay. Sorry, gang. Sorry about that. So this is what's called the Japanese hand hoe. A grass weeder is what they actually call it. And we adore this thing. It comes in a left and a right-handed model. And the way that this hoe works is the way that all hoes should work. You should use it with the blade flat on the ground. And notice that I'm going to hold on to it like this and hold the blade flat on the ground instead of most people do this stuff. They turn the blade like this and then scrape the soil, and see how much soil gets moved. I'm trying not to take the plants out, y'all, while I'm doing this. But if you hold the blade flat on the ground, it literally goes under the soil. Y'all, I'm going to have to stand up and do this. I'm trying to not take. So I want to take out all the weeds. I'm just looking to where I'm going so I don't wipe out one of our plants. And I am just going to, I'm scraping the surface. The soil's a little moist to be doing this, y'all. But it just scrapes and takes out and disturbs the soil. This is really hard to do, y'all, holding the camera and doing it without trying to take out plants. And that's it. When the weed seedlings are this small, it does not take much to kill them. And by just running the hoe through the soil, holding it with the blade flat on the ground, if I take out one of these plants, I'll just be kind of mad at myself. There you go. And because this bed is really kind of planted in it's not in a straight line. It is kind of, and it would make it really easy to do. I can really just tidy up this garden in literally not long at all. I did not. I almost took that zinnia out. I think he may get replanted. So if you don't attend to these little teeny weeds when they're little teeny, y'all, they become really big weeds. Here's a nice big swipe. When they're small, there's just no effort. And that's why it makes it so dadgum easy to do it. And by not going really deep down into the soil, you're not bringing up a whole new fresh bank of soil, of seeds, I'm sorry. And I mean, it's just absolutely so simple and so easy at this stage, but most people wait until the weeds are really visible and really a problem, and then they're really a lot of work. I mean, I can tell you, it's hard for me to try to pay attention to what y'all are seeing because I just love extinguishing little weeds. So, I mean, really in no time, the weeds are actually gone. So the next step would be on this garden is once we can get some heat to get these plants to grow, we will then mulch this garden. And as I mentioned before, I really like to mulch really, really deep. And really deep means you are blocking the light from getting to any weed seeds that are still in the surface of this bed, right? And that eliminates, we do have some Bermuda grass that's popping up in this bed. Hoeing will not fix that. Bermuda grass is a perennial weed, and it's like the bane of my existence. Y'all, I'm sorry, I'm looking to make sure I'm not taking out little plants. Kind of going at this a different way because these little babies are so small and I don't want to mistakenly take a baby plant out. So, I use anything that's organic for mulch, meaning I love anything pine straw, chips, as long as it just doesn't have it's not treated with anything. And it does a really great job, and that'll just really help you to retain moisture. So there's not really a lot more we can do to this garden at this point in time. I will say that the hand hoe, I'm going to sit down here and turn this back around. This is going to be a really, really sweet garden to be in this garden, you're going to harvest it all summer long, right? So really just knowing the steps that you should be trying to do, it's like, go out and look at your garden. Get down on your hands and knees. Are there those little teeny weeds? Then you need to tackle them with a hand hoe. I probably have way too many of these. I bet there's 8 or 9 of these in a bucket from back in the days when we had multiple people here working. I mean, everybody had a hand hoe. You just use it for a lot of stuff, but it is really awesome for pulling it through the soil to take out weeds. And when you do it when they're small, it is totally effortless, y'all. And what happens is once you learn how to use the hoe and you see how easy it is, you're inclined to do it more, and you're inclined to do it at the right time. And once you get into a habit of, kind of carrying your hoe with you, or at least having it in your tool bag out in the garden, after you start extinguishing weeds when they're small, then you're stopping them from producing seed. If you allow a weed plant to go to seed in your garden, oh my gosh, I read somewhere that amaranth, there's cultivated amaranth that people use for cut flowers. I mean, it's a big food. I mean, it feeds, that's a real big food product in third world countries. pigweed is amaranth. There are some very aggressive amaranths that once you get them in your garden, they're difficult, and that is because one plant can produce like 5,000 seeds. 5,000 seeds. That means 5,000 potential plants from that one plant. And that's why your purpose in life as a gardener is to prevent weeds from going to seed. When you prevent one weed from going to seed, you're saving yourself tons of work later. So what happens, and I kind of forget how wonderful weed control I really have in my big gardens until I start a new space. Because, I mean, I still get weeds, but nothing like other places, because we really try to prevent weeds from going to seed. If I have a weed area in my garden that I can't get to, at the very minimum, I mow it low to keep the plants from blooming and getting seeds and spreading everywhere, because that's really it. And so in a little garden like this, preventing those weeds from growing up, and so I would say to you that if you pretty thoroughly did what I just did, and that garden is pretty much, there's a couple of spots I didn't do because I was afraid I'd take the plants out because they're a little close with me not being able to look at what I was doing as closely. After you did that about every 10 to 14 days for 2 or 3 times, what starts to happen is you have less and less weed seeds in the surface of the soil there to sprout. So you kind of extinguish the seeds. You extinguish the seeds that are there to germinate. And then once you mulch on top of this, after you've done it a few times, it just really sets you up for a low weed season. So we will, what'll be coming up next, I don't think it'll be next week, but hopefully we'll be able to mulch. I will weed with you guys again next week, and we can talk more about it, maybe talk a little bit about the harvesting practices, and we'll mulch, and then we're going to put in flower support. I'm going to put in flower support netting and show you how to do it in a small case, and it's just, to me, if you're a flower farmer, I always enjoy reading all of these people chiming in on a lot of these closed groups that are fairly new growers that haven't grown big, talking about how you don't need to do flower support netting. They don't know how people cut through it. Well, but our plan here is everything gets netted with the exception of our sunflowers. And the only reason we don't do sunflowers is because there's too many of them. We just don't have the manpower to actually do it. But everything benefits. You can lose an entire garden in one torrential downpour. It's not really the wind so much for us here. It is the torrential rain. If you have mature flowers, whether it's zinnias or coxcomb or ageratum, we net basil, we net shorter plumes, and we didn't get most of our cool flower garden netted this year with all this craziness going on. And I have cut so many flowers and dropped them in the pathway because they're crooked. You cannot use them. And I cut through netting at high speed, and it can be done. You just have to learn how to do it. People are just too impatient, and it can be done. And it's for us, where I am with the rain situation that we have to net. You can lose a crop that you have been caring for a really long time in one 10-minute event. And so I'm going to show you how to put on netting. And I feel like it's even more important in a small garden like this because you only have 2 little small gardens, right? Or 1 3x10. You don't want to lose one plant in your bed. So I'll show you how you can do that. It's really straightforward and simple. And once the flowers grow up through it, it really kind of gets hidden if you, are kind of worried about that aspect of it. And it also keeps your dog out. Well, if you teach your dog not to go in the bed and there's netting there, it really, really helps. And yeah, Jessica just posted that she also uses the netting for space and plants. That is in a big gardens like we plant. Bobo has a special roll of netting that she uses for planting. She rolls it out, 6-inch squares. One plant typically goes in each square, and then she rolls it up, and they get netted not too long after that, a couple weeks. But yeah, so the netting is really good. I'm just going to look back through here and see if we have any questions. Well, we have a house full. Hey, Drew. Hey, Jamie. Hey, everybody. And Janet. Elizabeth. And Tracy. We got people from all over. I'm going to pull this closer, y'all. I'm screen. So, y'all, y'all know that for those that have been following along, you know, I lost my glasses. Tomorrow will be 4 weeks ago. Tucker went through a hole I'm not kidding you. Steve and I still don't know how he got through the hole. Apparently a piece of equipment from the neighborhood next door grabbed our fence and broke a few pieces of the wire. Well, he and I were playing ball, and all of a sudden he just disappeared. He went through that hole, scraped him all up, which we didn't find those until later, but, you know, we've only had him since December, and he's a 2.5-year-old male. He's now neutered, but he's not the most... He is wonderfully smart and a good boy, but he doesn't come when he's called, and it was really a big game to him. I didn't chase him, but I was chasing it after him because I was terrified for him to get out of my vision. In the rain for an hour and 15 minutes. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Anyway, it was raining so hard to take my glasses off, and I put them in my pocket. Well, I lost them. Never could find them. So these are my backup glasses, but they're an old prescription. So I literally have not been able to hardly read for a month. I mean, it's been very frustrating. So I finally got to the eye doctor. I made an appointment immediately, but I finally got to the eye doctor last week, and I ordered new glasses on Thursday. And so we'll see. And they're very different. They're big. I thought it might be easier for me to see with my bifocals. Anyway, I can't see very good is why I'm having to pull this at the right distance here. And hey, everybody. See a lot of familiar names. We got people from all over. So, do you ever grow white anise? I thought I could replace baby's breath with it, but it hasn't had any blooms yet. No, I haven't grown it. Any tips? No. You know, first off, the baby's breath that you would grow in your garden is very different than what you see. I mean, first off, most of the baby's breath you see out on the open market is dried. I grew baby's breath. It's actually a cool flower. Gosh, it's been 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I just wasn't very impressed. I mean, it just wasn't very useful for us. So I have never grown anise, and Ami May just pretty much does it for us to have that white, fluffy, kind of airy flower. Hey, Christine and Becky. What do I use to put holes in Bio 360? We have a really high-tech tool. It's a screwdriver. That's literally what that or a dandelion weeder. Bio 360 is the biodegradable film that we use 99% of the time on our farm for planting in, and it's made out of a corn byproduct. It looks like plastic. It's black on one side and white on the other. Depending on what the temperature is which side you put up for when you're making the bed. When it's under 85 degrees, the black side is up for planting, but when it's over 85, or actually a little over 80, we use the white side up because you'll cook transplants. So you can literally just use you can use a dibble. It's not like landscape cloth or plastic where it is a bear to put holes in. So literally that's what Bobo uses. So, Amy, it's very interesting that you should ask, should you pinch your Lizzies? I don't know how big your Lizzies are, but I've been out in the garden on and off all day today. It's an overcast day, making videos about our different flowers to put on our store. And I just did about a 2-minute video on Lizzie Anthus because I weeded the Lizzie this weekend to get it ready to be netted. And Mother Nature pinched for us, as she did 3 years ago and introduced this to me. Mother Nature pinches by getting low temperatures when they're at a certain height. Mine were about this tall. They had been planted probably for 2 or 3 weeks. Lisianthus is a cool flower. It should be planted 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost for the best performance of the plants. And that's what we did. They were planted around Valentine's Day. Well, Mother Nature cold snapped us. We had, we were in the high 20s in earlier April, and that snapped back, meaning killed back that little central stem on those little, well, not all of them. That was the interesting thing to me when I was weeding today. Not all of them, just some of them. And they were not covered. We never typically do not cover Lisianthus unless it's going below 20 degrees. So the ones that got killed back have 5 stems, the same size as the ones that were not central stem killed back, the same size as that single. So you don't get 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 stems. And they, in past experience, they will be not the honkers that one single stem will be, but they will be substantial stems. So we had this discussion today on our Facebook group for flower farming students. As we have closed Facebook groups where all of our instructors during school we're there a lot, but after school we're just kind of touching base in there, and we were talking about this. And mine and Dave's suggestion is to folks is to pinch half and see what works best for you. It really depends on how big your plants are, how far along, and where you are, and what your conditions are. Lisianthus really benefit from being well rooted in cool to cold weather, not in the heat of summer. I know for the first 5 years that I grew Lizzie, I did not know they were a cool season hardy annual. And I planted them like in April, when you plant all your other warm stuff, and they did okay, but I got no stem length. Now we have 36-inch stems, and it's because of when we plant them. So thank you, Wendy, is answering to Donna that she remembers that you can use your finger, but if you have an arthritic finger like mine from probably punching holes, you can use anything sharp. And I will tell you that Emily, one of the folks that's being interviewed on Thursday with me and Dave, she's Fugel's Flowers. She made a really cool device out of PVC pipe that I bet you if somebody asked her on Thursday evening to post the video of her using that and how they made it, it's a real simple thing to do. Hey, cuz. Donna asks, is there a tool that punches a hole and plants a plug? Yes, there's many different contraptions. Some of them available for sale on retail. I have we call him a Mr. Hatfield. It's the Hatfield planter, and we modified it to be able to plant soil blocks with it. But I will tell you that it takes 2 people. That's a 2-person contraption. Somebody has to hold the tray and feed the person that's planting the transplants. But back when we were in high production is when I bought that. That was probably 10 years ago. And the folks doing the planting said they preferred hand planting. I mean, soil blocks are so different than plug trays. I mean, it is just so quick and easy to do. If you have a whole wheat, Bobo puts down, the film is on the bed. The bed is made and covered in film. She rolls out her plastic. She typically stoops down and punches the holes as far as she can reach. Then she plants and then moves forward, and she is really very quick. So we've never investigated any of the others, but there are lots of people. So Wendy's asking, is Dave's new class a rerun from January? Yes. Or if the same, will previous students have access to new material added? Thank you, Wendy, for asking that question. That's an excellent question. So when you buy an online course from us, any of them, you own it for life, and that includes any additional information that an instructor adds on. We add them on typically as bonus sessions, and those come about typically from questions that people ask during the course. It's like we realize, wow, we need to explain that better, or we need to show this or show that. So if you took Dave, let's just say Dave's course, for instance, if you took Dave's course this last winter, which was his first year, and he adds anything new, which we just talked about this on a Facebook Live the other night. I think he has at least two things he's adding. The past students will get notifications saying, hey, check this out, there's something new in your library, and then the new students will have it. And the new students get to benefit from the last year's Q&A with their instructor. They get to go back because they're in the library and they get to watch it, but also the past students will get to benefit from the new students' question and answer sessions, because what happens is we record everything and they're always added to the online library. So with each passing year, your online course gets a little bit more dense with content, and it's really pretty awesome. We've really created a way for instructors to communicate with their students in a way, and I just can't tell you how exciting it is. We have new courses coming down the hopper. Jenny Love's doing a new course on marketing. It's called, I might not be exactly, Marketing Magic for Small Farms. And that was her previous job, if y'all didn't know that. She was a marketer. And she has some phenomenal, her Flower Farmer course has some phenomenal information. Well, she is taking that information and going deeper in this class. It'll be about a 6-hour course. We have Ellen Frost's new course that's coming out. Ellen is a florist that only uses locally sourced flowers. It's called Florist School Online, Local Sourcing Flowers. Something there, it's on our website. You can check it out. And I have another one in the hopper that I'm working with an author on. So we're just really trying to provide lots of great content to build a business around flowers grown near you, locally, wherever you are in the world, from marketing them, selling them retail, wholesale, commercial, not being a farmer, being a florist, and using only local flowers. What Ellen Frost has done in Baltimore, only using flowers grown within 100 miles of her shop year-round. She has cultivated farmers. She has, I say I'm so excited about every course, y'all, but Ellen's course, I think, is what's going to change the flower business in this country, because we've got to stop outsourcing to outside of our country, and she shows them how to do it. So Wendy, to answer your question, you will have access to everything new, including the new Q&As as soon as they come out from this course, this year's students. So I see so many people on here. Oh, and Jerry says she has the hoe and loves it. Rhonda. So Rhonda works here with us on the farm in the warehouse, and taped for your protection. That's right, the paper cover on that. These hoes are, I now have myself another new hoe since I've used a new one, are pretty sharp. They can be sharpened, but I frankly find that even after they're dull, by the way that the design of the angle makes them work even super great, even after they maybe aren't so sharp. So I don't see, oh, hey, Jennifer. I also love laying the netting, and we already talked about that. Thank you for that. So, Stacy, do you need to harden off seedlings that little? Well, we kind of fudged. I don't know, Stacy, if you've been following along. The reason our seedlings were planted so young is our first round of seedlings kind of grew up too big and ugly to be planted because of all the cold weather. So we restarted them and we kind of pushed the envelope and planted them. But I immediately covered these beds with row cover. So they kind of were hardened off in the garden. But the soil is still too cool, and we're just not having any, I'm in a coat, y'all. On Memorial Day weekend, we are usually deep into the high 80s at this point in time. So yes, everything should be, warm season plants should be even more hardened off than cool season, like cool flowers. The heat is much more harder on a plant than cool is. Oh, so Dave answering, hey, Dave Dowling, a summer session of the same class as January, past students from January, you'll have access to anything added new to the class. So, our friend Wanda is here from Alaska. She's one of our students too. And there's Nancy. So Wendy says, my dahlias don't last long in a case. Not sure what that means. So yeah, Charlotte, I've been tooling around. Oh, here we go. Won't last long in a vase after cutting. Do you add anything to your water? Yeah, Wendy, that is part of Flower Farming School, which is the course that I teach, is really about the basics of starting a flower farm, which is nothing like having a garden, starting a business, and then the basics of growing annuals to get the biggest bang for your buck while you're learning to farm, getting customers, and learning how to sell. Harvesting and conditioning is one of the last sessions there, and we talk about that specifically. I think Dave talks about it in his course, but dahlias are not a real long-lived cut flower. If we get 5 to 7 days out of them, we're really pleased. We use the CVB tablets. I use the chlorine tablets in the harvest water, and then they're put immediately in the cooler, which seems to be the most important step. And then our customers, our florists, keep them in the cooler until they're getting ready to use them. And they do really well with that. Have you ever heard of florists buying a Cuba? Possibly, but Lace, I want to caution you, anybody that's a new grower that feels pressed to start looking around their yard for things to cut because you don't have enough flowers. You do not want to give the impression that you're cutting weeds out of ditches and that you're cutting stuff that's really common, because most florists have trouble using them. They're not used to using that, perhaps. And then their customers look at it and say, good grief, I have a Cuba in my yard. Now, a really creative florist would use a Cuba in a very beautiful way, but I just caution you. I can remember hearing from somebody, oh yeah, we use the pods from crepe myrtle. Well, I won't even tell you that rabbit hole I went down, and it's like, the time that I wasted figuring that out, I could have planted another crop of sunflowers and made a whole lot more money. So I would just caution you from doing, I don't know what what you were thinking, but that's what my thought process is on cutting unusual things. After you're established, you figure out what your florists want, and if they're into experimenting, take it to them. I pinch half of everything that can be pinched, mostly from fear of whether or not it'll work. In April, that's a great method to follow. I like that. I just ordered your sunflower collection of favorites and was wondering if it still makes sense to start in cell trays. I never direct sow anything in the summer, much less sunflowers. So yes, that's what we do, because I want to go out and plant them. They're spaced properly. The weed pressure is much less. So yes, we start them in cell trays year-round. Well, not year-round, but April till September. And we plant them once a week. Can you succession plant between existing sunflower beds, or would you suggest an entire different area? You just don't want to plant them over and over and over in the very same spot. I can do it twice in a row, but then they need to be moved to another area in the garden just to prevent any disease issues from popping up. Hey, Rod, how can you tell when celosia is ready to be hardened off? 3 to 5 inches is the perfect size transplant in my eyes. So that's when we do it. It may take you longer or not as long, depending on what your growing conditions are. Sorry, y'all, I'm reading and talking at the same time. Is it too late to plant out Lysianthus seedlings? That is a personal. There's a lot of people that are planting it now. You just have to really be attentive to it. I would plant it and just be very attentive to the watering situation because if you're having warm days, and if you're up north, if you're in a region where it's still cool and you have really cool summers, that should be fine. But if you're in the south, you need to really stay on top of keeping it well watered. I plan to take the class. I can't wait. Thank you. I'm new in the fresh cut flower world. Thank you for your inspiration. Hey, Wendy, we're going to be in class together. I mean, I'm telling y'all, I am like so excited about taking Dave's class. I'm totally going to be a student geek. I'm going to be right there with y'all learning. I mean, we grew a lot of bulbs back in the beginning, but I haven't grown bulbs and perennials other than peonies and tuberoses. But that's it. So I just can't wait. I mean, I've reviewed the course, but I haven't taken the course, and I'm doing it. So Wendy, we'll be in it together. We'll be buddies in our closed Facebook group, right? My coxcomb leaves and my blocks are curling, then they droop. Can I save them? Kim, I would question how old they are. Sounds like probably overwatering. The whole point with transplants is you want to get them in the garden as quickly as you can. Nobody wants to live in a soil block or in a cell pack. That's not their intended. So to get them started and then grown big enough to plant them out in the garden should be the point. And it would just depend on what's wrong with them. I would growing warm season tender annuals in a warm environment like I do, or if you're in a hoop house, I'm in a grow room where everything gets totally dried out overnight. I water every morning, everything's very dry. That cycle of being dry and then being thoroughly watered and then drying out and being thoroughly watered prevents most problems. So you might want to evaluate what your growing air temperature is where you're growing. So y'all, I'm going to get off here. It's been an hour. I didn't think my phone would even last this long. It was only 50% charged. So our little garden's coming along. Please join me every Sunday evening for this little cutting garden, and then we're just kind of talking about other stuff since we didn't have a lot to talk about on our cutting bed. But please like and share this. Go to thegardenersworkshop.com, sign up for our farm news if you want to get the links to our broadcasts that are not typically on Facebook. They're Zoom calls, and we do them. We have one this week with Dave and I and 3 of our previous students, and I'm really looking forward to everybody. It'll be really great. It'll be a great talk on Thursday night because these people are, these farmers are just doing such a great job, and we're just so pleased for them and proud of them, and I just can't wait to hear from them. So what else did I want to tell you? Be sure and sign up for the newsletter so you get the Zoom link to join that call on Thursday evening. And Dave's class registration opens June 21st to 26th. Please share that with your friends. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really hard during the farming season, but it's going to be worth it because we're going to know what to plant, to order and plant this fall. And that's why we're really doing this special edition. Is it true that Celosia cressidiformis is, if not direct seeded? That is the warning on the package I just bought. You have got to be kidding me, Lisa. Really? No. Coxcomb is our top 5 cash crops on this farm, and I have never direct seeded one. But most people don't soil block. They use plug trays, and then they let them sit in the plug tray too long. Deformity cannot be necessarily just from that. It could be other things. So, no, we transplant them all the time. That's the only way that we do it. So, gang, till we meet again, and check out thegardenersworkshop.com and like and share this broadcast. Please, and invite your friends to come meet us next Sunday. Ciao.